CFL obviously is not going to be playing this year, but Mark Cohon, former commissioner of the league the other day, said this then becomes an opportunity for the CFL to re-examine itself and reimagine itself. And when it comes back, be ready to really draw the fans in. What would be some ways the CFL could tinker more to make itself even more relevant for the 21st century? Let's take down the rabbit hole. Rick Zamperin, we could have crazy ideas. We could have slight little tweaks. Regardless, what would you do if you were the Lord and Master of all CFL creation and you had the capacity to change something that would make CFL better when it comes back?
Okay, here we go. I got many, but the number one thing that the Canadian Football League can do to appease not only millennials and Gen Xers and boomers, everyone from 2 to 92, is have games on the same day, every day during the season. Friday night football, Saturday night football, whatever the case is, pick a day and go with it. Labor Day's fine. On the Labor Day weekend, you can throw that schedule system out the window, but let's have a consistent, this is the day the CFL plays. That way, fans, whoever you are, you're not guessing when the game is going to be, and suddenly you turn on the TV or turn on your radio or read it in the newspaper. Oh, there was a game last night. I missed it. No, you know, Friday nights or Saturday, whatever the case is, CFL football is on TV, on the radio.
Rick, I love the idea, but what about ratings? Because you're then going to lose. You're going to have some games that are playing at the same time, and so TSN is going to be losing out some of its audience.
Hey, listen, that's the way the egg is sliced in this case. You're going to have Saskatchewan outdrawing every other team anyways. Maybe a Hamilton-Toronto clash is going to be the ratings winner in the East. It's much better. Hey, if you want to split it, 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, have at it. But that's the most I would come to grips with.
I think they have to have at least one lock night, because what really turned the thing around on television ratings was Wednesday's Friday night football. Right, this was a doubleheader a lot of the time. So there's 2 of the games right there. Other than this, there can only be 4 a week at the moment with 9 teams. I think one of the things that could have really helped is not going to happen now, unless they decide to do it virtually, because they don't really need a stadium right now. And that's Halifax, because the stadium is completely off the table in Nova Scotia. And if you could have a coast-to-coast thing, that would do something, and I don't know what. I think the first thing that has to happen actually started on the weekend with the concessions they made to the players about free agency if you've got a chance to go to the NFL. That was a little bone to the players. And I think what people need to see is something they've already seen. And I'm sorry, Scott, it's not a new thing. It's something they've seen in the past, and what they really need now and was really exposed during this last 6 months. And that is some kind of togetherness, both within the ownership ranks and ownership to players. It's been very, very obvious. So I think nobody's going to believe anything on new advances until those things are set and obvious to the public.
Guys, I think the league's in good shape. I'm okay with games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think we all identify with that. I'd like to see a couple of games being played during the All-Star break for Major League Baseball. I think that's a great opportunity where nothing else is going on. But at the end of the day, when I look at what needs to change, if I was the commissioner and I would change immediately, you have to sit down and get the owners sitting down with the players and say, we need a new graduated payment system, of salary system. I'm thinking maybe something kind of MLS-like, where you have 3 to 5 players making a certain amount of max money, and everything else there grades down from there. Far too many times over my lifetime of watching this sport that all 4 of us really enjoy and cover, we are talking about the finances of the league, and it needs to stop, because it not only is it a constant conversation, it makes, and we've brought this up before, it makes the league look Mickey Mouse. We have to admit that the Canadian Football League is not Major League Baseball. It is not the NFL. It is not the National Hockey League. It is somewhere above maybe NLL, maybe right alongside MLS. But a new graduated system of some way to pay the players, and the good ones, some good money, Because there's nothing wrong with making $500,000. That's good money because there's no other league to go to if you want to play good football. After that, though, it has to filter down to a reasonable number with graduated increases year by year.
Yeah,
This is not my point. This was not the idea that I had to fix the league. But Bubba, since you're talking about money, I've been thinking about this lately since this whole thing is about how desperate times are for the CFL with the requests for 150 million, then 40, then 30. What if the league were to institute even a $1 per ticket for every game in the league all year surcharge for anyone who goes to a game, and that money must go into a kitty year after year after year that is sitting there as a pot for a desperate money situation. Within 4 or 5 years, you would have enough money there if a team got into a huge problem or something else, and it's not a huge amount of money for the fans who are still willing to go. I don't want $10 a ticket, but $1. How many fans go to a CFL game over the course of a year? Enough that you could put some money away over a period of time. Bubby, you're exactly right. We talk about money with this league all the time, and it doesn't ever seem like there really is a plan. And I know it's difficult, but there doesn't ever seem to be a plan to protect against the next time.
Well, I think that, there's been, I agree with both of your points. And I think Bubba is right. Until the COVID, the league was on pretty good. I mean, there were individual fires, and that was about individual franchises, but they weren't, both of those franchises, Montreal suddenly had money involved, and Toronto had stable money involved. We were looking at Halifax coming. So really, there was, BC seems to be, and there's, seemed to be the one problem there, and the other ones were major problems because they're in major markets, but the ownership seemed to be ready to go there. I agree with that, but when it's gate driven, they have to find another way to make it gate driven, and maybe, which is how this discussion started off, some innovation on television can make some difference there, and I think that's one of the things that we were talking about. I think Rick was on the right track. At least have one anchor night that you can count on every single week, whether it's post Labor Day or after or pre Labor Day, that it would always be a Friday night. You can always count on a doubleheader on those nights, and that's one way.
But they're doing that.
Pardon?
They're doing that right now, are they?
They
not?
are. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
There's interest. The TSN has never complained about its ratings. People are watching this sport on television. Are they always going to the games in particular markets? Well, that's a struggle. That's a struggle in every league, guys. I mean, does anyone ever talk about the 30,000 that show up to a 70,000 seat stadium in Carolina in the National Football League? Every league's going to have one team that's struggling in attendance. That's natural. I accept that. But in terms of the game, there's nothing wrong with the way the game is played. There's no tinkering necessary. The only thing that this league needs to tinker is the way it handles its finances. That's it. And everything else is fine.
I'm not sure that's true. I think there needs to be a stability of roster, and they've started to go towards that with the way they were doing that. Essentially, and it got kind of missed. Is that the veteran players become part of the ratio type of thing, so that you get to know who those players are. One of the problems with the CFL for average fans is that they can't keep track of who's what and where, especially in the last 3 years.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I agree with that, all guys.
And then you get better teams as well because you have continuity from the start.
You're totally right. I agree with all of that. But I think that's a big enough problem that people are vexed with the league, right? Yeah. Again, and to me, the TV ratings are the answer right there. Because you're right. I mean, the guys going and coming. Yeah, that's a problem with the league for 20 years now. Yeah, it hasn't affected the ratings that people are watching this sport.
And just for clarification, I want to make sure I'm clear. Teams may well be putting money aside and be doing financially responsible things. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But for the public view, the appearance to the public that the league is going to do something to protect against a thing down the road. That's what I'm talking about, and that's where a $1 ticket surcharge or something would come in. Rick has not been able to get a word in. Jump.
Listen, I was going to say, if we're talking about the future of the league, the TV deal is great, but we need more fans in the stands. If this is a gate-driven league, we need more people to come through these gates. So appeasing to the younger generation of the league has done a pretty good job at doing that, making CFL games more of a party-like atmosphere. come on down, grab a couple of buddies or a couple of gals. You'll have a great time watching, the best Canadian football players and some of the best American players on the planet play this game. I think another thing that, the league can do is add a few more CFL or Canadian roster spots. And I'm not sure if it's necessary you have to start 10 Canadians, because I know they're looking at going the other way, but having more Canadians involved in the product, maybe instituting a mandated third quarterback has to be a Canadian. That might be tough in some years, but the fact of the matter is I think there needs to be a little more Canadian content on the field, and maybe regionalize it a little bit more. Have Hamilton, have an umbrella over, the Southern Ontario market, along with Toronto. Montreal focuses on the Quebec market, Ottawa, so on and so on. And, drum up and build up those local stars so you get more people into the stadiums.
That's a crazy idea, but I love it. And I'll tell you why. It's like the opposite of what every league has done. Go back to the days in the NHL when you had a region and you could draw the players. So Montreal got all the Quebec players. Look, it's a crazy idea, but we ask for crazy ideas. Break the country into regions and force the CFL teams to get involved with the grassroots and develop players for their teams. I love that. I love that thought.
Well, there is a bit of they are working towards a bit of but it's generally for the bottom couple of teams, right, where they get a extra regional draft choice, and I think they should expand that. I think you guys are all right about that, and they're trying to put some more money into, but they only have so much money, right? They've put an awful lot of money into development of football, particularly at the flag level, because they want to get kids playing some kind of game. Well, they're not going to play tackle football, a lot of people, but males and female will play flag football, which is why the heavy emphasis, even the NFL has recognized that if you've played the game, you're more likely to watch it on whatever it is. And if you played some form of the game, which flag football is, that's why even the NFL has put such a big emphasis on flag football at the younger level. And the CFL has invested heavily in that. And I think they need to do more of that. The other thing I think they need to do is look at it. You're right, Scott. Show that it is a business. Show that it is a business that can work as a business. They're taking steps towards that. They've already showed that it's a pretty decent league, but it's neither one nor the other, or even both those together. And I harp on this. It's a cultural institution, number one, and they've done a very poor job. And maybe it's not them. Maybe it's us. It was a great example during 2012, the 100th Grey Cup, of all of the things you can show of why this has been really important culturally. Look in the past, like during the war, how it played. I mean, just because it was very good they asked them to play, and they had all those war teams. There's never been anything like it, but people don't know about that. And I'm not saying go back on history, but to show how history is relevant today. And it's particularly relevant because we are in horrible times right now. And the CFL has always been pretty good at helping us through those times. They need to find a way, or perhaps those who are around the game need to find a way of relating that to today. And I don't know how I would do that technically, but there's a way to do it.
But how do you do that when you have a commissioner that's focused on propping up England in leagues in Europe, in Finland, Mexico, the CFL 2.0 thing? I mean, at the end of the day,
2.0 is good. It's just the messaging on this is bad. Just don't even talk about it now. Who cares?
What does it do, though? I mean, you're wasting time. I mean, you're talking about building up the league in Canada and actually building some type of Canadiana with it. But I don't really care about a guy that comes over from Finland or Mexico or whatever the case is, because at the end of the day, maybe even 5 years into CFL 2.0, how many of these players are going to make a true impact in the game?
It's new markets. It's new markets for the game. That's what they're looking at. It just doesn't need to be talked about right now.
Well, and the idea is going to be, hopefully, I think, if I interpret what Randy Ambrosie is trying to do, is that ultimately, if you get a bunch of these players in, you build a TV audience there because suddenly people are interested in their local guy. Unfortunately, I don't think that there is a 0.000% chance that suddenly the CFL is going to be must-see TV in Mexico City or Guatemala.
Not happening. Not happening.
It's about happening. The idea is long-term to do that, but the other thing is, where are the biggest problems in this league attendance-wise? Three major cities, all of which are highly, highly integrated cities. That's part of the argument. Now, this is the start of it. Again, just don't talk about it now, because this is what we need to deal with, but keep working on it. You can work on more than one thing at once.
I think the whole CFL 2.0 thing, which I know we're kind of getting off track, but I think it more or less benefits the players who are coming to the CFL from places like Mexico or where have you. But 10 years from now, if we get an international superstar, if you will, then maybe I think they can capitalize financially in terms of TV contracts or whatever the case is. But I think we're a ways away from that.
But you have to start. And this was the time to start, I think.
Sure.
Again, just don't publicize it all the time now. It looks like tone deafness if you're talking about kids league.
Yeah, and Steve, that's your point again, is that, okay, you can do this. You can start working on making some deals, but this has been the big exciting thing, and I think that misses the point of what people are excited about. I don't think there's a person in Regina who goes, holy cow, look at that. We're about to get a player from Kazakhstan. No, I mean, honestly, dude, nobody cared. Work on the league. Here's another thing. Now, we asked, let's get back to the topic for just a second. It's not that we've been off the topic. But you tinker with to try and fix the league. Here's another one I would throw out. I've said this for a long, long time. I think my colleague beside me on the top row here, gray hair may fall out when I say this because I believe he's against it. One division, no East-West, top 6 teams get in, and this makes all the games from the first day of the season matter, because if you start 0-4 or 0-5, you're in big trouble. As opposed to now, if you're in the East and you start 0-8, you can still make the playoffs and go to the Grey Cup.
First of all, do you think they're not trying in those first 4 games?
I think they're trying, but I think it changes the responsibility, changes the necessity, and it makes every game matter much more.
Not enough to give up.
That the CFL doesn't start till Labor Day. Why?
It's not enough to give up. You got to keep that East-West thing, and if you don't, you are dead.
Nobody cares.
And
I think if you have a team, whether it's in the East or the West, say it's Hamilton or Toronto or BC or Calgary, whatever the case is, they start 0-6 and they're so far out of the playoff picture, and this happens in other leagues too, that fan base loses interest. So, I'm not going to go to another game. Labor Day will be my last game. This team's already out of it. And now in a gate-driven league, now you're hurting those franchises.
And not only that year, but the next year, because they won't go at the start of the next year.
We talk about pointing the game to the millennials and the people that they have to. I mean, the people that are organizing the CFL have to put the game and focus the attention of the game on people other than us, much younger than the 4 of us. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I get a feeling from talking to a lot of the kids, about the CFL, that they want to see best on best. And this is why, hey, Scott, I get it. I get what you're saying about, the East-West thing, and that's a natural, and it bonds Canada, and we've all been to Grey Cups and how amazing it is to meet people from different countries and different provinces in the country. That's a great part of the Grey Cup. But ultimately, nowadays, in a 9-team league, our championship game should give you the best team playing the best team. And I think that makes it legitimate there.
We got it this year.
Yeah, we did, but I don't think anybody out west is going to care if Edmonton plays Calgary. They're going to go, oh, man, this Grey Cup stinks. We don't have a team from the East. Right? I mean, and if it's 2 teams from the East, well, it's never going to be 2 teams from the East. We know that. But nonetheless, it is. I don't think it really matters. I think we want the best to be playing against the best, like Bubba says.
I think that's
world where you are a click away from any spot on the planet. I don't believe not to start singing "It's a Small World After All." I could threaten you with that one, and you'd be humming it for the rest of the day. Small world after all, and we don't need to have. It's not East-West anymore. It's not this.
Do we go in the NFL? Do we not play in because it's the AFC and the NFC, and because the 4 best teams for many years were in the AFC, and then they were in the NFC, and then we're the AFC? Did we pay 1 less iota to do we in the NHL play 1 less iota because we split the East and the West? Do we in baseball care not about the World Series because the National League was so much better for so many years, and the American League got that's BS. Total,
but it's harder.
Utter BS.
God, Steve, it's harder in a 9-team league than the other leagues that you're talking about, 30 and 32 teams. It's a different. It's a different.
My larger thing. It's not a league. It's not a business. It's both. But ultimately, it's a cultural institution. If you go beyond that, it will fail because it's not big enough to be either on its own.
I think you have to stay East versus West in the CFL because I think as a country, those in the West hate those in the East. And those in the East really couldn't care less about those in the West. I used to live out West, and everyone hated Toronto and East and whatever it stood for. And us here in the GTA are like, meh, there's Western Canada and they live out there and we really don't care. I think the East versus West dichotomy, if you will, plays well in the Canadian Football League. And really, there's no guarantee that if you did a one-division format and the top 6 make the playoffs, that you're still going to get best on best. Because in the playoffs, there's always upsets.
I'm going to tell you that over the last 20 years, maybe 15 of the West Finals, Western Final, Division Finals, have been better than the Grey Cup.
What do you think? For the record, what Steve says about the NHL, I'm all for getting rid of divisions there too and have 1 versus 16, just for the record. Nonetheless, what do you think? Would you support any of our ideas? East, West, do we care? Tinkering, what ideas would you have? Lots of things. Throw them out there. Comment down below. We'd love to hear. While you're doing it, subscribe and hit notifications so you can know when these are coming out. We appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you again soon.